What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Angel Road Outdoors, the podcast. This week is episode 14, and I am joined by a very special guest. I sort of felt like I was fanboying a little bit. Matt Lehr of the Great White Mobile Hunter, formerly Great White Saddle Hunter, currently the founding father and host of the Mobile Hunters Dojo, maybe Mobile Hunter Dojo, which is a forthcoming podcast starting in January of 2024. Matt is a fellow Michigander, a real humble, down-to-earth, likable, well-spoken, articulate, fun Michigan hunter who can really put himself out there and find himself in amazing situations all year, every year, year in and year out, and finds himself successful and having wonderful adventures along the way. And we talk a little bit about that and Matt as a person. And so I hope you all enjoy this episode coming up next, episode 14 on Angel Road Outdoors, the podcast.
The people who go after this stuff, what makes it worth it? It's got to be your passion. You got to love it, ladies and gentlemen. You got to love it. It's got to be what you are supposed to do. You want to sing, and even though they won't invite you to Carnegie Hall, you're going to sing to anybody that listens to you, including singing to yourself. I used to talk to my plants when nobody else would listen to me. You got to write, even if no one published your book, write, because that was given to you to do. You do what it is you're supposed to. You're supposed to build something. You're supposed to create something. I don't know how to do it. Learn. No, it's hard. Yes, it's hard. It's difficult. Yes, right. And it's worth
it. Welcome, everybody, to Angel Road Outdoors, the podcast. This is episode 14. I am joined with special guest Matt Lehr, the Great White Mobile Hunter, if you will. Only as of late, though.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining me, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's nice to talk to another Michigander, another fellow Michigander about hunting.
Another fellow Michigander who also hunts Illinois.
That's right. That's right. But you set the bar pretty high this year, my friend, and I don't know how I'm supposed to think about that, without getting the exact coordinates of where you were at, and still be very motivated. All I know is that if that is crawling around in the woods over there, and I'm also over there, it's very inspiring.
Yeah, that was, it was luck finding them, obviously.
Sure. It's all part of it.
That could have been a 140-inch buck, and I would have went after him the same way. You know what I mean, like, I don't have the same techniques, but I would have went after him. I found him, and it just happened to be that big.
So I don't have a tremendous listeners base. Like, as I've sort of mentioned to you, we're just rolling. We're just getting rolling on the podcast. But maybe one of these days, someone will go back and listen to this and get a kick out of it. But for anybody that doesn't know, Uncle Matt here, and for your edification, I call everybody Uncle based on a job that I had when I was like right out of high school. My boss called everybody Uncle, and I've sort of taken that on as a term of endearment. So Uncle Matt killed a 200-plus inch buck in Illinois this year, and the story is fantastic. And he just did a story. He just retold the story on the Run and Gun podcast with Justin. You also told that story right after it happened with somebody in Michigan. Who was that with?
I don't think it was in Michigan. He's from
PA, maybe?
Yeah, he's from PA. And I'm so sorry. No disrespect, but I cannot think of it right now.
Is it bow hunt? Was it the origins of the hunt?
Yes.
Okay. So I was making some notes before we jumped on, and that's what I thought. I would also encourage people to listen to both of them, because I have listened to both of them, and each story has different information that I find fascinating. And so I think if people listen to one and then listen to the other one, you will pick out little juicy tidbits to take into your own toolbox and things that are just absolutely fascinating. So again, I wanted to have Matt on because not only is he a fellow mobile hunter, he's a fellow Michigan guy, he's a killer, he is a hard worker, he's a great guy, and he's also starting a podcast. Why don't you tell everybody what that's all about?
Yeah, so that'll be the Mobile Hunters Dojo. And the reason why I kind of chose that name is like, this idea of training, and perfecting our craft, and also that we're all at different levels, right? And I think in the beginning, I say, hey, I'm the white belt sensei, and then we have these masters, these black belt masters. But, I think a lot of conversation these days are around this black belt level conversation. And you can definitely learn, a white belt can definitely learn from a black belt, obviously. But you really need to learn some of these basics as you move up in order to get to a black belt. And I want to kind of have conversations at different levels to help guys wherever they're at, and actually give them like a little tidbit every time they listen to one of those, podcasts that they can take with them out in the woods.
Absolutely.
And, yeah. And then the one idea we have is just having like do this now each month. So in January, do this, February, do this, all the way through the months to get your first mountable buck.
I love that.
To me, a mountable buck could be 100 inches, 110. Could be your first buck. Who cares what the inches are, right? Whatever it is to you, here's what you can do to help, make that happen. And so we'll do that. We'll do that one episode a month. And I would love to be able to have some people come on at the end of the year and go, yeah, this is what I did, and this is how it worked out for me.
Well, what's really cool about that, Matt, is that I really jumped in with both feet maybe within the last 2 years to the podcast, the hunting podcast. So forever it was comedy podcasts. Long drive. I drive everywhere for work, long drives, 5-6 hours to and from job sites. And it was comedy, just kind of lighthearted stuff all the time. But then once I really became serious about hunting, it was hunting podcasts. Mm-hmm. And that I started to take nuggets from the podcasts that pertain to me. And when I would travel for work, these out-of-state hunts, I was applying some of those little nuggets of information wherever I particularly was at that time of year. Well, it may not have been monthly, but it may have been quarterly. And the fact that you have the forethought that people can, there's a point in which you're like, man, I want to do something for hunting right now, but it's February 11th. What am I going to do? And to have sort of like this monthly annual breakout of here's how I can be effective all year long for my passion is really, I'm excited to hear how that goes.
Yeah, I think where that idea came is I actually started applying it in my own life, and over the last 5 years, and every month I'm doing something. I mean, last year was great because the weather, at least here in Michigan, or in the Midwest, we didn't have much snow. So January 1, I was out there scouting.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yep.
Real fresh information. So there's a lot of things you can do every month to make it happen. And sometimes it's just shooting your bow, and something as simple as that. I mean, during the wintertime, I'm shooting down here in the basement. Yeah,
that's so great that you do that year round, because I know historically for years, as soon as it was season, I quit practicing. That's horrible, mm-hmm. man. That's such a huge mistake.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did that too. Like, I think the last year was the first year that I adopted shooting every day, and it didn't matter if it was in the wintertime or not. And I mean, that actually helped out killing the buck that I killed this year down in Illinois. I was so like in tune with my shot process that mm-hmm. that was one less thing I had to think about. And I heard guys say that all the time, and I actually kind of get annoyed sometimes when like guys are so perfect at everything. So I don't want to ever try to sound that way, but it is the thing that actually really helped me, and I got really comfortable with my bow, and yeah, I mean, so there definitely are these little things you can do that don't take much time. I mean, to shoot 10 arrows,
right?
It's not much time.
Not at all.
No.
Are you
shooting 9 yards inside the
house. That's perfect. Easy. Yeah. You can quickly get your arrows and be back upstairs for breakfast.
That's right.
Are you a guy that as this relates to shooting your bow, are you a guy who's constantly upgrading bows and strings and arrows and releases and stuff, or you got your setup right now and you're very happy with it?
I do, and I'm not a guy I'm not a bow, like, I don't want to say geek. I'm a geek in plenty things, so if you are, that's not offensive. It just means that you're really focused in it. I'm not that way. Like, I bring it down to a long range archery shop here in Holland. There's a guy there that is phenomenal. I just say, hey, man, keep my bow shooting great, tune it up, tell me what to shoot. He does, and then I go back and it shoots great, and I just practice.
How frequently do you take it into him?
Once a year.
So you do it annually, okay?
I do, yeah. Yep, I have him retune it every year. I had the same bow forever, and then recently, 2 years ago, I picked up a 27-inch V3, which is challenging because it's, the torque, you can torque that thing if you're not good at it. And that's what was going on with me. And I went in there and said, hey, this bow's not shooting right. They're like, no, you're not shooting right. And that's what motivated me to shoot every day.
That's a hard pill to swallow.
And I ended up loving it. But I shot the strings off it the first year. I mean, literally, like, destroyed the strings in 1 year.
Wow.
And brought it in and said, hey, I need you. And they're like, holy cow, what are you doing? I'm like, well, since you guys told me I couldn't shoot, I've been shooting every day.
We fixed that.
Yeah.
So listen, so I saw you at this year's Mobile Hunter Roadshow in Michigan. And, I recognize you and Josh and Derek and a lot of these guys that I see their faces on Instagram. And my brother and I are a couple of dummies who are there and we're just goofing around. And I'm like, I don't know. We don't know anything. We're just here. And so unfortunately, I didn't say hi. But I feel like, and this is my naivety, a 27-inch bow is short for you.
Yeah, it is. It's super short.
Yeah. Do you like that?
I do now. I love it.
Interesting.
So I bought it for the saddle hunting.
Okay.
I think I had like a 31-inch bow prior to that, a prime.
Yeah.
That I was shooting. And then I hated, like, I just felt it was so big in the saddle.
Yeah.
That when the 27 came out, and again, like, I'm not a guy who's like super into bows and stuff. If it shoots good, it shoots good.
Yeah.
Didn't realize that when you buy a 27-inch, like, you're dealing with torque issues as much as, it's a real issue.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because I hurt my eye and had to learn how to shoot left-handed. And I bought a left-handed bow 2.5 years ago, a Bear, entry-level Bear, ready to hunt. I taught myself how to shoot, but it was a 29-inch bow. And the more I shot it, the more I realized I was torquing the shit out of it. Yeah. So this year, I bought a used V3 31, and yes, there's a feel of quality in between the two bows, and that's whatever. But I have not noticed an issue with the length when I saddle hunt, but I definitely feel it is a smoother bow in my hands. Mm. And I think when you said it was a 27, I was really interested because I felt like you were at least my height or taller. And
I'm only 5'10". I'm not a tall guy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. 5'10". It works. I mean, but for me, it's all about hand. Like how it sits in your hand and getting the same spot every single time. And then, I'm almost embarrassed to admit this. Yeah, I never looked at the bubble on my sight up until last year, ever.
I don't think I even had one. I think I knocked it off.
Yeah, I never ever thought about doing that. And this year, like that became everything to me, making sure that everything was level when I pulled the trigger. And when that big one came in, I actually had the wherewithal to just stop and look at the bubble and make sure that I was in the middle and everything was lined up, and then went back into my shot process and pulled the trigger. And that's where that repetitive, like, shooting and doing that just actually helped me become calm this year. I feel like I usually get like pretty jacked up when a buck comes in that I know I'm going to kill, and I've got to calm myself and talk to myself in my head like, all right, bring it, get it together. But this time it was all about going through the shot process. And I remember really specifically, like, let me just look at that bubble, take a peek at that bubble for a little bit. And that really calmed the situation down. So yeah, it worked out good this year.
And sorry, I'm backing up again. What I wanted to say was, I actually got goosebumps listening to your story last time. And I think I want to talk to you about our stories, because I shot my biggest buck ever in Illinois this year as well.
That's awesome.
But it was 40 inches less than yours, which is absolutely mind-blowing to me, because I'm looking at my skull cap right now, and I am trying to envision 40 more inches on there, and I fucking can't. But anyway, I want to talk to you about the similarities one day, because there is something to be said with how confident you are because you have taken shots every single day. And you almost feel like you've either manifested the scenario that you find yourself in, or you have visualized this and it's actually coming to fruition, and the calmness that washes over you because you have almost done this before.
Yeah. Yeah. I've done that in other parts of my life, by the way.
Interesting.
I mean, yeah. And I'm a firm believer of that, and not in some kind of I'm a faith guy, but that's not it. And it's not a mystical kind of way.
No.
I don't know what it is, but I've done it on small things, like even running a race. Like I don't run, but my wife and I decided to run a race, and I went in and I just kind of thought about what it would look like. I went on Google Earth and looked at the course, and so as I ran through that course, I felt like I had ran it like 3 times or 3 or 4 times. And so I knew where I was at all moments, and I ran that race like a champ. It was awesome. I had a great time. Any other race I've ever done, I've only done a few of them. They were a pain. I've done it with even, man, it sounds weird, but I've even done it with my wife. Like I was telling my friends, I'm going to marry this kind of woman. She's going to look like this. This is the family she's going to come from. And all of that happened.
That's incredible.
It is. I'm a firm believer of it. And, the funny thing is though, I rarely apply it. We'd think, because every time I apply it, I feel like it works. I rarely apply it in my life. But this one, when I shot that buck, like, I ran the scenario of him walking down that specific trail so many times in my head. Even driving down there that weekend, I was running it through my mind as I was driving there. And so when it happened, it didn't shock me at all. You know,
that was the point. That was the part of the story right there, is because I left my house at 10:30 after my wife got home from yoga, and I drove 6.5 hours to this state land. And I like you said, I did it. I replayed the scenario in my head over for 6.5 hours, and I anxiously chewed my fingers. I think I wore myself out before I got there, so that when it happened, it's like, yeah, I know. This is exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. Yeah. And I was telling somebody on another podcast, I think I was talking with Joe at Generations to Hunt podcast, that I think what happens is you have mentally gotten yourself to a point where you subconsciously make micro decisions without even realizing you're doing it. And you are putting yourself in a position to be either successful, or you can think yourself into the negative as well. Like you can overthink yourself into failing, but if you can also, you're doing it. So your body and your mind, you're making these little tiny adjustments without even realizing you're doing it. And I think that's super helpful, like you said, in all aspects of your life, but I don't think a lot of people do it or take it for granted.
So either. Yeah. I don't think so either. I mean, and I haven't, I mean, up until that moment, that was the first time I did it with hunting, really. I think. And so, yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to change how I move forward, you know, even next year.
Sure.
You know, as far as running the scenarios through and thinking more, it's not about positive thought. It's not about positive, like, thoughts either. It's just running scenarios through your head and envisioning it. Mm-hmm. And I think you're right. It does set you up to do little micro movements and different things. And I mean, what I don't know if this is true, but I heard that your brain cannot make you a liar. Right. So if you look in the mirror every day and you say, look, I'm a loser, your brain's going to do things subconsciously to make you a loser.
I believe that. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you say, hey, I'm going to do things, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that, I think your brain finds a way, because it's all about survival for your brain.
Yeah.
And your brain can't have you lie. It's not surviving.
Yeah.
So I've done it in other ways too. I mean, just as far as fitness levels and stuff like that, and different goals that I've set, but I wish I would do it more. I mean, after this year, you know,
I do too.
A lot more.
I do too. And I think, you know, the more I talk about it with other people, the more I realize. So I am intimidated by goal setting in my personal life, professional as well. Like my company wants me to set goals. I don't like doing it. So I try to weasel my way out of doing it. But why? We just had this conversation about how great it was to set goals and then, you know, visualize yourself seeing them into fruition. Like, what the hell's wrong with me? Maybe I should just get off this, get moving here. But, you know, you just mentioned something about fitness, and that sort of leads me, you know, into another question I had for you is do you use, and forgive me, maybe I haven't heard you say this, do you use mental and physical fitness to kind of encourage you throughout your hunting season or how you do things? Are you a fitness guy?
I was, and so I got injured last year, but so I've gone way downhill. But for the last probably 5 years, I got pretty big into fitness and lifting and you know, getting down to like, it's crazy. I mean, I was probably at like, I don't know, try not to exaggerate here, 24% body fat, you know, at some point in my, you know, when I first started getting into fitness. and I got down to 12% body fat, and just had less. I went after fitness like I did deer hunting, just like this regiment. I mean, every day was just, something. And then this year I hurt myself in January, and I just haven't been able to bounce back. I hurt my back.
Backs are tough, man, at our advanced age.
Yeah, that's why I thought you called me uncle, actually, is because I'm old. I'm like,
you're just a couple years older than me.
Uncle's perfect. But, but now I've actually, I think I just let that get away. I got lazy on the fitness stuff. And I definitely can feel the difference. So, I'm 46 and I mean, I'll put in, like last year I did 150 miles scouting, with hunting. I mean, I usually walk miles every time. I'm carrying everything on my back. I'm climbing up trees, at my age, like it gets a little bit harder and harder, but I was fine. This year though, without working out, without doing the things that I normally did, it was a struggle. It was a real struggle. And you can, Vince from Chasing Public had to help me pull that deer out. And it was like every 30 seconds, I'm like, hey, let's take a break.
That's funny.
It was so great because in the beginning, he's like, no, yeah, sure. We're as long as it takes, buddy, we're good. We get to the last, like, I don't know, half mile. And it's like, we got to keep pushing or we're going to be here all night. Like he landed into me. Like,
are they a lot younger than us?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure. It's hard to tell once you get to like 30 something, I follow them as well. I just didn't know how old they were. Yeah.
They're awesome. Yeah. So I think of like 10 years younger than I am. Yeah. At least 10 years.
Yeah.
And he trains and runs these crazy, like Ironmans and all this kind of stuff.
Man.
So he had no problem. I was dying, so he would have to set these little goals. Like, see that log? We're going to pull until we get to that log and then you can take a break. So,
and did you have a cart? Did you have a cart with you guys? Did he bring one?
I brought one.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah. This little $60 cart that I bought from like Dick's way back in the day. I never used it. And that thing held up like a champ.
That's amazing.
And, I gave it to him. I mean, he wouldn't accept anything else. He drove 5 hours on it, just out of nowhere to come help me. And I'm like, you get to keep the cart, man.
That's nice. That's nice. That was so awesome of them, by the way.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Great. Really cool.
Well, just so you know, if you ever needed something, you could call me too. And I like adventures. So I know that they're closer than me, but I mean, I like adventure.
I appreciate you too, man. I do too.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you made a good point because 2 years ago, I shot a buck in Illinois, the same state land, a much smaller buck, my first ever out of state deer. But I was by myself and I stupidly didn't bring a cart and I had to bring that thing up and down out of that. Thank God there was a little snow, but I was so out of shape 2 years ago that I said, I thought I was going to throw up multiple times on that drag back to the truck. I'm like, never again. I will never be that out of shape again. And I worked my ass off this year and I felt so much more confident putting myself further away from the truck in more precarious situations due to my confidence in so many things, but also my physical. Like, I know I can easily get out of here. I've done all the work. I'm physically capable of doing this, but I know that feeling, man, like that being like, you're out of shape. You're like, I'm doing it anyway, and I'm going to figure this out. Then you have to figure it out. And you're like, son of a bitch, that was a mistake.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I've been there so many times.
Well, that's awesome. Is there any correlation between your physical fitness and the dojo aspect of the new podcast name?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I love training. Eventually I'm going to do a little like video of my gym here.
Oh, you have your own gym? Excellent.
I do. Yeah, I've got my brother had some like professional gym flooring and he had extra left over and that was enough to motivate me to build a gym in my basement.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty sweet. I like it. And it took me probably like 5 or 6 years to get to the point that it's at, but I think it can give a lot of like at-home gyms a run for their money.
That's sweet.
And yeah. And it's awesome now. I've got a teenage daughter and she's down here squatting and doing deadlifts and, all that kind of stuff. So my boys, they haven't gotten down here yet.
No.
But, yeah, she's trying to get them down here, but
that's funny.
Yeah, so a little bit of that, and the other part is, I just love MMA too. I don't train, but my brother's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
That was my main question: is did you train in any of that realm?
No, never trained in it.
Okay.
He has, and and I watch a ton of it. So that's kind of where it came from.
Awesome.
Yep.
And of course, the teaching aspect of the dojo as well.
That's the main part of
Yeah,
it. Yep.
for sure.
Yep.
No, that's really great, man. And you mentioned something earlier about, goal setting. A lot of people will live and hunt their entire lives and careers, and the 200-inch deer is their ultimate goal, and they will live and hunt for their whole entire lives, and that will always remain their top goal. What does somebody like Matt do now that you have, realistically, you have achieved what some people can only ever dream of? Like, how do you look at goals now that you've done that?
Yeah. At first, I didn't think it was going to change anything. It only did a little bit. So I'll say this, and I'm sure other people might disagree with me who've maybe taken a deer like that. It didn't feel any different than shooting the 125-inch that I shot the year before. The feeling's the same. What was different about it was this one I had planned out. That part I was most proud of, is that I broke down this deer's, where he was, how he's living, where he was traveling, and then made a plan to go get him, and then learned off the mistakes that I had. He busted me before, and that was new for me. I'm usually a rut hunter, and so if it comes by and it gets me excited, I take it down. But the whole feeling of actually like shooting the deer, and then that part, I don't know. I was so happy last year with that 125 that I shot, It made me realize that I probably could do a little bit more targeting of deer and applying those same principles. So that changes my goals. I've been saying for a long time that I'm the 120 inch, 125, 130 inch guy. That's kind of what I've been doing for a long time. So I'm interested in going a little bit higher than that, 130, 140, obviously anything higher than that would be great. I have not turned into a guy who thinks that he can go target Boone and Crockett bucks every day. So it hasn't driven me to that point. I don't know. In a weird way, I don't know how to really explain it. It was underwhelming. I was super grateful. Like I sat with that deer for an hour. I've never done that before. And again, it went back to the whole visualizing it and getting it. I felt like, I was blessed is the word. I felt so appreciative that I had that opportunity. So I'm not downplaying that opportunity. Like, of having that, harvesting a buck like that. I felt like I was so unworthy of it. And I just wanted to soak that part in. But, when I got home, like I brought the horns to the taxidermist, and it's not going to be done for like 9 months. And the guy asked me like, why do you not have the horns at home? Like, how come you didn't keep it? And I'm like, I don't know, because they're just horns. And the end of it, like, I don't want, here's what it is. I don't want that thing to represent me.
I like
that. It doesn't
that.
make me who I am.
Yeah.
I am who I am because of so many other qualities that I actually appreciate myself that have nothing to do with deer hunting,
Yeah.
And I never wanted to make that thing about me, and I never wanted to make hunting about going after all those. Now, for the guys who do, like these guys who are elite and go at all good, man, that's a God-given gift that you have, and I will support you going after those. I'm not criticizing somebody who goes after huge big bucks every single year. I will try to push I want to find another, really big one and do it too, but I just don't want to make it about myself. I started talking in the podcast about how big it was, but I never posted the score on Instagram. And I went back and forth. I almost didn't even put it on Instagram.
Interesting.
Because I just didn't want to make it about, who I am. And I knew who I am. I'm not an elite hunter, I'm not that guy. And I just never wanted to pretend that I was. So as far as goals go, yeah, they've moved up a little bit, because I feel just like when you're weightlifting, right? Like, you have a PR that you want to go after, a certain physique that you want to go after, and then you reach it, and then you want to press it a little bit more. That's what it did for me. It made me press it a little bit more, but off of the level that I normally was. So I'm normally 120, 125, 130. Well, now I want to be like a 130, 140 and see how I do there, and just kind of keep moving that needle up a little bit. But I never wanted to get away from me where it's not fun anymore either, and,
Chasing Inches will do that. Chasing Inches could do that.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah.
It will.
I
know I'm rambling.
No.
I'm rambling a little bit, but I want to say one more thing.
Yeah, of course.
So hunting for me was not fun. People didn't like hunting with me because I wrapped up my identity in it. I had to kill a certain type of buck, And every time I killed whatever I thought that buck was going to be, I was never satisfied because there's so many other guys that were killing bucks bigger than the ones that I thought. And I thought that my value of like, honestly, as a human being, like, I'm not smart enough because these guys are doing it, but I'm not doing it. Like, I'm not good enough. I'm, all those things. And hunting became miserable for me. And about, I don't know, the journey about 5 years ago started to shift, and it still didn't get clear until probably 2 years ago, where finally it didn't make me who I was. I realized I had so much more value than what I could accomplish in the woods. And the funny thing is I was sitting in the tree stand and talking with God, and I said, I just said, hey, my value's in you. Like, it doesn't matter what happens. And I'm not saying he did it because of this, but 15 minutes later, that buck's come in and I shoot him. For me, though, it was growth in me. I realized like that thing it doesn't make me who I am.
How many years ago was that?
That conversation was this buck.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. 2 years ago, I started to really realize that, though. And I shed it. I started to shed it.
Do you remember the moment? And if there was one thing in particular that really flipped that switch?
So the real switch that got flipped was last year. And I was working towards it. I knew what I wanted to get to. I knew that it was tying my identity up into this stuff, and it was making hunting miserable for me. And so I set a goal. We're talking about goal setting, that I could get hunting back to like a healthy level for me personally, and that I can enjoy it again. And so last year poured into all my effort into that piece in Illinois, found that buck, hunted that buck, and he busted me, and went back for the rut, and immediately within the first day started like, oh my gosh, it's not coming together. I'm not, and I'm hitting it hard and going nuts. And I remember talking to a buddy of mine on the phone. I'm going, you know what? I'm going to leave because the weather sucks, which means it's going to be against me. It was like 80 degrees that day. The wind was crazy. It was like 35 mile per hour winds. So I'm going to fail. And if I fail again, that hurts my identity. So I'm going to go home, and I'm going to come back at a different time when my success rates are going to be higher. And I'm complaining, and I run into a buck parade. I mean, literally walk into it, and there's 130, there's 140, there's 120. And I hurry up and climb up in a tree, and 7 bucks go by. And I'm not trying to make this a faith conversation, but for me, that's what hit. It was almost like, just don't force it so much, Matt. That's what I heard.
Yeah. And
there was a moment in the tree stand. This is going to sound crazy. I actually shed a tear that day watching those deer. They were just out of range. But I took that information, came back, and I killed that 125. It was then I realized that day that my identity isn't tied up. I don't know why that moment brought that into light to me, but it did.
It was probably a whole bunch of things that were really sort of like floating around up there that all just kind of came together at one time to flip that switch for you. That's really interesting. Huh.
So this year I hit it harder than I ever did. You would think, well, then you'd back off a little bit and just enjoy I hit it harder than I ever did this year. I mean, I scouted 200 miles. I was out every weekend. I, did everything, but I did it with so much joy and
intention too.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I think that's part of it. As I think you can hunt your balls off, and then you can hunt intensely yet intentionally.
Yes.
And you can, like, personally, we used to just hunt every weekend, long weekends here, but it was like there was no thought. It was like, I'm going to sit in this tree stand because I haven't sat in it yet. And it's like, I'm hunting my balls off, but I'm not doing anything. In fact, I'm probably ruining it. But like you said, it was very intentional.
Yep.
My wife, I hunted less this year, yet had more successes this year, even though I shot a doe and a buck. But I mean, I was in deer. I was in deer every day in Kansas. I was in deer every time I was in Illinois, except for one sit. I've been in deer almost every sit in Michigan. It's just not, whatever. I'm not connecting on the deer that I want to shoot. But like you said, there's a way to hunt your balls off and yet hunt intensely with intention. And I like that, man. That's really cool. I find myself, and again, I'm not trying to make this about me, but I find a lot of similarities in our stories. You've definitely been hunting a lot longer than me. I had this 13-year chunk where I lived in Florida and didn't hunt. Like, I started hunting here when I was in my early 20s. Lived in Florida for 13 years, didn't hunt, came back and realized this is my passion. And now I'm fully invested. But what was I going to say with that? Oh, I'm concerned occasionally that I'm going to lose control and be like, I'm just a wild man now. And so I got to try to find that balance. And it's nice to hear you have a really great way of articulating, a healthy balance, a healthy imbalance, because there's never really a balance. It's just the right imbalance. And so you have a great way of articulating that. You have a great voice. You have a great relatability. And my brother and I listened to you on September 14th as we drove to Kansas for the first time on the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast. And that's when I realized I know this guy from the Mobile Hunter Roadshow. I follow on Instagram. And we both really loved listening to you talk. And so I did that long way around the farm to get to the barn to just say, I know we're really excited for you to start the Mobile Hunters Dojo. And we just love listening to you. And I do think you have a great way of bringing information to people and sharing stories and thoughts and ideas, and all that stuff is awesome. I had another question for you. Where the hell is that? Oh, okay, so this is something that I'm struggling with right now, and it's partially because I do listen to a lot of hunting podcasts, and a lot of very opinionated people. Although I love their shows, there's a lot of very opinionated people out there, as I'm sure you're well aware. Do you feel like, and I know you just said that you don't want to make the deer's score sort of the focal point of the process, but do you feel like you skipped this entire the whole several stages of deer acquisition, so to speak? Yeah,
and that's why I'll in the introduction to my podcast, I say I'm the white belt sensei, which means I'm like low level, right? It's because I feel like I skipped, a huge chunk of it. I would feel way more confident in giving any kind of like tips or tricks, and I think a lot of the podcasts I've done, I'm really trying to say, hey, look, I'm nothing, man. I'm just, I'm just a guy who's out here grinding it out. And I think I'm improving a little bit by a little bit, but I'm in no way in a place to give you a whole lot of like input, and if you're just starting off, then yeah, I can help you get going. But, there's a lot of guys who've done way more than I have. I do feel like I skipped it. And, that's why I want to go back. It's funny. I'm not making my goal of 150 this year. I'm making my goal like 130, 140. In there, and I want to gradually move up. I'd love to fill in those numbers in between and do that. Part of that was the way that I was hunting. I was just, for the longest time, I just go during a 10-day run. I'm not doing any hunting outside of that. I'm not scouting. I'm doing a lot of e-scouting, and I've gotten good at that because I've done it for a very long time. And then I'm going in and I've never ran cameras up until 2 years ago. And I'm just hunting a spot, and, a first good looking deer that comes through, I know I have limited time. And if he gets my heart going, then I shoot him. I had a buddy of mine who's mentored me, who is a absolute killer. He's one of the most humble guys I know. He killed a 175 a couple years ago. He probably won't shoot anything less than a 150, and he's done it on public and private. And he said, Matt, you're underselling yourself. Like, you actually could be up here, but you're doing this whole, I'm not going to scout, I'm going to go figure it out in 10 days and kill a deer. And he was the one who got me to start scouting and laying cameras down 2 years ago. And he said, you can kill a higher caliber deer if you do that. And so I trust him. And so I said, okay, I started doing that. And yeah, like you said, like this year I've hunted the least I've ever hunted. I'm in more deer than I've ever been in. And, I'm passing bucks that I wouldn't have passed before, and not because I shot this buck.
Yeah.
Just based off of what he was telling me, and I'm starting to go, yeah, okay. But yeah, I skipped a bunch.
That's funny.
I want to go back now. I want to go back and fill that in.
I do too, and I told that same Joe at Generations to Hunt, I told him, I'm like, man, we had a conversation about deer size, and I'm like, dude, I've never seen a 130 ever in my life. I can tell you confidently, until this year, I had never seen a 130 on the hoof. So I have a whole bunch of 110s down here. Not a whole bunch, but I have a half a dozen 110s, and the biggest deer I ever shot was this guy right here is a 116, and I didn't even get him. I had to find him in the spring at the neighbor's property, and then I shoot a 162 this year, and it's like, what the hell? Like, I think I saw a 140 on the hoof in Kansas run out of my life forever, but this ability to watch deer come and go, like I was in deer all year, but to watch a 120, a 130, a 140, a 150, I visually don't even know what that looks like.
Yeah, I think, it's so funny. Like, if I am throwing numbers out and stuff like that. I bet you if you ever like really put tape to the deer that I thought was a 140 or whatever, that it would be much smaller than what I think it is. It's always bigger in your mind when you're doing it. But in the last couple years, in the last 4 or 5 years, I've started to see more of those. But I put myself in spots where there's big deer.
Yeah, that's huge.
Somebody asked me, like, they're like, what's your secret to success? And I'm like, I go to other states. Like there's guys in Michigan who kill bigger deer than I kill in Illinois. Like they're just better hunters than I am. But I go to states where there's bigger deer so I can see more of them, in a short period of time. And you don't even have to be that good of a hunter. Like I wish people could really get that, like if you're intentional and you educate yourself a little bit and you don't just go busting into the woods, but you move with, intention and with a purpose, just that alone, moving with a plan and not just blowing things up and thinking about how your walk into the woods is affecting the deer around you. If you just did that and went out of state, if you're in Michigan, your success rate will skyrocket, and I killed deer even before learning that out of state during the rut, I just put myself into easy situations. I'm nothing special, Do
you find that, I know we've talked a lot about the podcast and listening to podcasts and learning and growing and evolving. Did you have a group of people that you hunted with routinely here in Michigan? I know you said there was a long time you didn't hunt in Michigan, but did you have a core group of people that you felt like not necessarily were holding you back, but you needed to start getting outside that circle of influence to gain knowledge before podcasting? Or was it, as soon as podcasting, that's when that happened?
No, it was way before. Yeah. And these guys were the reasons why I am who I am today. So I want to say it with the utmost respect. And one of them in particular is like so far above me in his ability to hunt. I mean, this guy thinks like a deer and he's phenomenal. He's the guy who got me into hunting. His name's RJ Morris. And, if he would ever go out of state, I'm telling you, this guy would be unstoppable. I mean, he understands deer. He got me into hunting mobile. That's how I started, was with him, hunting out of heavy, climber stands, going on state land with him. He brought me out there, and he was the first guy that, I remember when I first started hunting with him going, yeah, you can sit here, but if you cross that water, you'll be by yourself and you'll be around bigger deer, And I think I held him back because he would go and he would be willing to go do that stuff, but he stuck with me and taught me. They got into some private land, and private and public are, I think, the way that you approach those are two different things. And he knew that if you methodically, set your stands and watch what you shoot, you could shoot bigger deer. And he was willing to take the time to build that on the private. And I was on that private with him. But I was too much of a wanderer. I wanted to go around. The other guys were more or less, and I love these guys dearly, but I mean, RJ and I set their stands essentially. Like, yeah, here's your stand. Here's where you're going to sit. And I would get in RJ's way because he was building a system on a piece of private that ended up working. I mean, these guys are now slaying huge bucks, but I was too impatient and I wanted to bounce around. And so eventually he's like a brother to me, but I knew our styles were bumping against each other too much. That's what actually brought me to start wandering and going out of state.
Interesting.
And it is. Yeah. And I mean, you could put me on a piece of private and say, hey, Matt, you could shoot a 150 here. And I don't think I would. It's just not my style.
It's not as attractive, is it?
It's not. No. I like the adventure, and I like going out of state and trying it.
I've struggled with being excited about our private piece this year. And it's not because I only hunt permanent sets there. I don't. I think I've only sat in a permanent set 3 times all season out there, and it's not because of laziness. It's because I thought that's where I needed to be. But I have been mobile hunting the private piece for 2 years. And people would shoot me if they knew I said this, but because it's in Hillsdale, it's 80 acres down in Hillsdale. I mean, it's great property, but I'm a little bored with it. And I've talked to neighbors, and I've sent letters, and I've asked for permission, and I haven't gotten blatant no's, but I also haven't gotten explicit yeses yet. And so, I'm sort of playing the long game with those guys. But their long game is short because they're like 90 something. And so, my long game, I don't know, maybe my long game's too long there, but I've got a little bored. So I know what you're talking about. But, I found myself wanting more a couple of years ago. And I mean, mine all started with my eye injury and realizing that life was short and who knows when your last hunt's going to be. And so I'm going to fucking do it all, and I'm going to do it all right now. And so I had to step outside of my circle of influence. And that's when I was laying face down while my eye healed, and I'm watching all these YouTube videos of dudes going out of state. And that's when I decided I was going to Kansas, and I did. And anyway, I just, that getting outside of, if I could just say one thing to people, it's just go talk to an absolute stranger at the Mobile Hunter Roadshow and just ask them questions, man. Like, that is not a plug for Lone Wolf. I strongly encourage people to go there because it's such a cool event. And I know you feel the same way. Just spend an hour talking to somebody who hunts differently than you, and you may reignite that flame. If you're feeling a little stagnant, talk to somebody that does things differently, that only hunts out of a climber, that only hunts swamps, that just someone that does something different. It's going to illustrate to you there's so many things that you haven't done yet. Mm-hmm. And it's just going to open up a whole nother world for you. But I just wanted to hear your opinion on that group of friends that not necessarily hold you down, but because my brother, he is really branching out now, but our other buddies are like, this is where I hunt. And that's it. It's just hard to get out of that sometimes because you want to be with them. You want to spend time with your buddies.
Yeah, I miss them dearly. And it's funny, like, I think 2 out of the 3 of them are more successful if you look at, like, their walls, So it's not about, like, me going out here means I'm more successful, but it's just more me. I have more adventure.
It's your adventure.
People.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 3 hours away or 4 hours away, 5 hours away. I've gone North Dakota, Missouri, Wisconsin, all over, Illinois, Indiana. I think that's all of them. Maybe Kansas next year, or Iowa in 2 years. But, I get to go to these places and I meet like just cool people, and I meet these small towns. I mean, it's like going back in the 80s almost. I drive through these towns and there's a Mountain Dew coin machine on the corner. You see different parts of America. I get to hunt property. The last piece I hunted had a waterfall on it.
Unreal.
I can go as far as I want. As far as I'm willing, because there's just so much of it. And then in Missouri, when I went there, the pressure was insane. It was like opening day of gun season here in Michigan.
Yikes!
There were people lined up down the road, and I was bouncing from piece to piece throughout the state of Missouri, and I could just keep going and keep roaming and. Eventually found the deer. Like, nothing really holds me back. Whatever you want to do, there's complete freedom to move. And I love that idea. I love the idea of going in and being aggressive and blowing up a spot, knowing that I could either chase that deer down another, in a different direction, or I could move to another piece if I want to.
Did you guys get some snow today?
Yeah, we got hammered. Yeah.
So I got to tell you,
it's crazy.
I'm pretty excited to go look at some of this public by my house and looking for tracks, man. It's some places I've never been into yet, and we've got my brother and I have some pins out there, and it's like today is my oldest daughter's birthday, and so he was here, and I'm like, hey man, I know you're busy the next couple of days, but if you can find an hour, go before the snow melts, get your ass out there because I'm going to do it. I suggest because it's been such a weird, warm. Winter so far, but that's you made me think about that when you're like I just keep roaming and roaming and roaming and until you find the deer. But speaking of roaming, give me an idea on your mobile hotel setup there in the back of your vehicle. Yeah. I'm fascinated with this, and I am on the cusp of diving in.
Oh, I love it. So the non-typical Josh has a way better setup than me. I think I had a better setup than him up until this year, and then he went in and just overdid it, and I can't keep up with him. But so I just have an old Chevy Silverado. I bought a cap that actually I don't even know if it goes to Silverado, so I had to get it to work, and it finally does. But on the inside, I've got like a padded carpet on the bottom, so I can crawl on my knees and it doesn't kill me, especially being the age that I'm in. I built a small platform, and on that I have it's called a narrow twin. So it's the size of a cot, but it's got a pillow top on it and memory foam underneath it. So it's like sleeping on a
holy
cloud,
moly.
It's awesome. And then underneath that platform, my bed, I have a long, piece of plywood that I pull out and it has legs, and that turns into a cook station or whatever I want.
Did you fabricate that?
Yeah, I mean, all it is just a piece of plywood that's narrow, and I grabbed some old legs that I had sitting around, like some old, I think, dollies that I had sitting around that I just put underneath there, and it holds it up. And then I put all my, I've got different bins underneath there. So like my, a bin for all my electrical for my power, for cooking, for bug control, all that kind of stuff. I pull it out and get to my bins. And then I bought a small little plastic, 3-drawer system for my clothes.
Okay.
And then this year I drilled into the side of the top and the cap, and I got a little plug system that goes in there, so I can, when I go to campgrounds, I just plug in there.
Oh,
and then on the
nice.
inside, I've got a nice little strip, and I plug in I use a heating blanket at night, and that's all you need, man. I'm toasty warm all night. I mean, warm, like it's the most comfortable thing. It's awesome. And then I plug in all my chargers, so I'm charging my my lights and my phone and all that, my computer. It's just a little home away from home. And then on the windows, I just got some of those that silver poppy insulation that you can get at Lowe's or wherever. Cut it out the size of the windows, and I took little Velcro pieces, and I just put them up there, and it Velcros up, and then tear them down when I'm moving.
That's awesome.
And then I figured out a way to lock the inside so nobody can get in, because I'm paranoid about safety, so I can't sleep.
Well, I mean,
lock it up.
Nobody wants to get accosted in the hills of Missouri. I can promise you that. No.
Yeah. But, if you really want to see, non-typical, I think he might be running like a wood burner that goes on the outside and pushes heat on the inside. Then he's got a solar system that goes into a battery.
I did just talk to him about the solar system. I'm not going to lie. I did ask him what he's using. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was funny because when he saw mine, he's like, I think I'm going to do something different. And I said, hey, I can send you the, what I did. And he's like, no, I don't need it.
No, I'm good, man. I got it.
Went in and killed it, man. His is all lit up. He's got LED lights everywhere.
Yeah. Well, you answered a question there that I was trying to figure out is, so are you exclusively camping at campsites, or do you ever primitive camp it?
I would primitive camp it, but I've been at all just at campsites. Love what I like about the campsites is the warm shower.
Yeah.
Bathrooms, all that kind of stuff. And I want to try to be as comfortable as I possibly can.
Sure.
I would do the primitive thing. I mean, I have a heated shower a propane shower.
Okay.
That I can use, and I've got other things, but I love going to the campgrounds and doing that. Yep.
Nice. That's awesome, man. That's my thing. I'm willing to live in my truck. You are clearly willing to live in your truck. Josh is doing it, the non-typical. Are you, not you, but as a hunter, what are you willing to sacrifice to chase these adventures? I'm not talking, it doesn't have to be deer. It could be you want to go see the Northern Lights for the entire fall, whatever. Just what are you willing to sacrifice for these adventures? And I think if people really look inward and just write it down, and as soon as season's over, just get I bought these little notepads this last January, and one of them is exclusively for hunting, and I wrote down my goals.
I was doing it last night. And
I'm like, you got to do it, and then look at them frequently and make sure that you're following up. If that's really what you want to do it. If it's hard, that's fine, but it's worth it. And so just keep going. And I think that you really do a great job of illustrating that. Listen, we're no spring chickens.
Yeah.
Okay. But if we can do it, and people like Heath Cisco, who are older than us, and lots of these guys are older than us, and they're still out there out hunting the shit out of us younger guys still, there's no reason. There's no excuses. And I love that.
Along those lines, you started in your 20s. Is that what you said?
I started when I was 21 because everybody I worked with hunted. I did not grow up in a hunting family. My dad did some minor bird hunting, but no deer hunting. I started because everybody else was. And then when I moved to Florida, I stopped.
Yep. So I had a similar, so I started when I was 21. I hunted for 10 years. And then, we were kind of talking about it in the beginning of this podcast. things got out of balance for me. I was hunting like crazy. I was hunting everything. I was hunting coyotes, turkeys.
Oh, wow.
All year round. I was filming for a TV show way back in the day, back in 2008 with a guy. Not because I was good. He was fantastic and just brought me along.
Okay.
So things were way out of whack, and I had to like step away from hunting for like probably 6 or 7 years as well, and then got back in it. When I came back into it, that's when everything changed for me. I think maybe maturity helped with that. But the point I'm trying to make is I've heard other hunters say, if you didn't spend a bunch of time in your youth in the woods developing woodsmanship, then, you're never going to get there. I've heard guys say that. The guys that I respect a ton, like, hey, here's the reality of it. If you haven't poured in all this time, it's not going to, the likelihood of you getting to a point where you are killing big deer is pretty low. That I do not agree with at all. And I think like you're a living testament of that. I am. There's other guys out there who have done it. We come in late in the game. It's all about what you said. It's about setting goals. What are you willing to sacrifice? Keeping a good balance as much as you can. I mean, I think even my stuff even still gets out of control a little bit. My wife she's good at telling me though, like, hey, you might not want to go out this weekend. But you can do it.
Yes.
Like it really isn't that hard. I think this just making your mind up of what you want to do and setting some goals and just trying to listen to other people and learn.
Yeah.
You can actually, it's amazing how fast your success rate and your growth rate can happen. I mean, 6 years ago, starting off this adventure, coming back into hunting, I would have never thought I would have been at a spot where I was as consistent killing deer as I am. And, so I don't listen to any of that stuff. Just go out there. I mean, it doesn't matter what age you are. You can go out and you can start killing big deer and you can, whatever you think is big.
Yep.
And you can be successful and have fun, but you do have to think it out, set goals.
There is no doubt about it, man. And again, nothing that you have said today or I have ever said is groundbreaking. None of it. No. It's all basic level shit.
Yep.
But when put into practice with intention is very profitable is not the right word, but it certainly is beneficial. Yeah. And so I think that's fantastic advice. I think there is no reason you shouldn't learn woodsmanship, but if you spend your whole entire time sniffing a licking branch to see whose saliva is on it and putting a tape measure on it, figuring out how far out above the finished floor it is, like you've missed the point.
Okay, I'm going to piss off a bunch of people. You just opened the door, and I'll make it quick. I love that you said that. Like, that was part of the reason for the dojo was I was listening to this stuff, and it works for those guys. I do not want to discredit them, but it made, like, some of the stuff that I was listening to made deer hunting so damn complicated.
So complicated.
That I was like, it would make me freeze when I was out in the woods. And it was just about bringing things back to simplicity and not giving too much credit to the damn deer, but thinking it through, but using these simple concepts. And that's all I have to offer anybody is simple concepts. If you want to hear like high elite level stuff, I'm going to have to bring in other people to tell you that because I don't apply that in my life. I just use the simple stuff that has been out there forever that Fred Bear has been saying and, all the old timers that we listen to said, and I'm just setting goals and being intentional. Mm-hmm. And that's it, using simple stuff. And yeah, I'm not killing 150-inch deer every year, but I'm killing a buck that I enjoy and I love. And I've got a few of them on the wall because of it. And I didn't have to like break down some secret code or, and I did all that. I had spreadsheets and all that shit. And it just made deer hunting not fun.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you said that. Yeah. Do the simple stuff and set a goal and be intentional, and you'll be amazed how much. Don't ignore that other stuff.
Yeah.
If you haven't killed like that buck yet, just ignore that other stuff and do the simple stuff. And
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, good deal. I just on top of that, I want to sort of agree with you in the sense that I have had to pause certain podcasts and then Google the definition of certain topographical definitions because I'm like, I don't know what that is. That is not here. I'm a flatlander, man. I don't know what all this stuff is. So pretty much for the last year and a half, I've been looking up definitions of what a draw, a hogback, an oxbow, all this stuff. And I'm like, holy crap. And just because those guys communicate to other guys who already know so fast because they don't have to define anything. So yeah, I know what you mean, man. The simple stuff. I mean, yes, some stuff from that also, but the simple stuff mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you had to choose one state to hunt for the rest, if your wife said you can only hunt one out of state state for the rest of our marriage, and I hope that doesn't put the kibosh on the old marriage, but if she said you only get one out of state, what would it be for Matt?
Holy cow! What a great question. And I'm going to answer it. I'm almost like kicking myself. Like, really? That's what you'd say? Probably Nebraska.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think I'd be more successful in Illinois. I think I'd kill way more deer, way bigger deer in Illinois. But Nebraska's such an adventure, man. It is. And there's big deer there.
I'd like to get there sometime. Yeah.
Oh, dude. Come down September 1, man.
Have you been to Kansas?
No, not yet. No.
I'm curious how similar it is to Kansas.
Where I hunt, it's very similar because I hunt on the Kansas border.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I love Kansas, and it's weird because it's not a lot of anything, but I think that's its charm to me.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I love about Nebraska is like. I mean, what I like about there is you can hunt a spot that's CRP and only have like a little strip of woods, or like not even woods, like a little strip of trees, right? And you're hunting up in those trees and that seems weird coming from Michigan, and you're like, really, it's going to happen out here, And I killed a really nice buck on 2 acres, a 2-acre plot, and a 1/4 acre of it was just the wood line,
Wow.
And killed a great buck there. But then they also have these rolling hills, I mean, you can go further up north and you can get in some like, big woods.
Okay.
You can hunt down south, and this year I was hunting in these like rolling CRP hills that were just giant. And I was hunting these draws and drainages, and the deer move different and just act different out there, probably like they do in Kansas, Yeah, it's just a huge adventure. In the towns, man, like you want to go back to simple. Like these towns are the tiniest things you've ever seen, and the people are just good, solid people. Everybody waves at you when you drive by, and I don't know. I love Nebraska. I really do.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
I know what you mean about the small town feel. So I took my whole family with me to Kansas last year, which is not ideal. Just
Good
putting
move,
that out there.
I like that you did it.
We just learned that we didn't communicate our expectations clearly to each other. That's a big, important lesson for anybody. But we went to this little town called Lucas in central Kansas. And for a guy who is covered in tattoos, I stick out like a fucking sore thumb in Lucas, Kansas. I got to tell you, when we go to the diner and, I have cute little kids and, my wife is beautiful and I'm tattooed and they're like, these people are lost. They are not. They took the wrong exit off the expressway, but so kind. They were so kind. There was such a cool old town with history and these really weird, unique things about it. Again, it all goes back to if you want an adventure, it's all out there. You just got to go find it.
Yeah.
That's really cool about Nebraska, man. I'm going to have to look it up more. I was just listening to somebody talk about Oklahoma, which I've done some work in Oklahoma. I never thought about deer hunting in Oklahoma, though.
I wouldn't vacation in Nebraska.
No.
Yeah. No, it's different. But the idea of chasing deer out there, that's an adventure.
Got it.
Yeah.
Good to know. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, Uncle Matt. I appreciate you hanging out with me tonight, man. It was really good to talk to you, on a personal level. Again, now I won't be so intimidated to say hello. I'm excited about your podcast adventures. I'm excited to follow along with everything that you're doing, man. You're a great dude. You're super humble, super humble. My brother and I were both talking tonight about man, I think he's underselling himself as being you're I'm just a white belt hunter. And we're I don't know. I just told you I've never even seen a 130. You're getting into them, dude. And we love listening to you and we're really excited for you.
I appreciate it, man. I really do. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, man. Well, we'll talk soon. Thanks everybody for listening. Yeah. We appreciate you. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, on Instagram probably is the best way. Great White Mobile Hunter, or at the Mobile Hunter Dojo on there.
And that's going to start in January, right? Well, you got your intro episode out now.
Yeah, episode 0. That was just a quick little trying to let people know what it is. But
Yeah.
we'll be on all the major podcast sources on January 15.
Sweet.
Recording with Josh actually on Wednesday.
Nice.
So,
I look forward to that one. Cool.
Yep.
Well, good deal. Well, thanks a lot, Matt. I appreciate it. And we'll talk soon, everybody. See ya.
A little bit of a learning curve, a relearning curve.
How long have you been doing podcasts for?
Man, so I started when I was living in Florida as a way to kind of at least get my brother back on the phone like once a week. So we started doing a podcast. I learned how to do a podcast in 2014.
Okay.
And we did that very inconsistently for like 7 years. And then made it to 250 episodes, and I'm like, I just want to do something different.
That's a lot of episodes, man.
Yeah, it was. It was a lot of dick and fart jokes, man. It was 7 years of the same dumb would you rathers, which I still will listen to and have a great time listening to them. I just didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
But we do talk about firing it back up.
How long you been doing this one for?
Not very long.
Okay.
Yeah, I really thought that I wanted to do a video medium. So like a video show, sort of like Bowhunter Die. And then I was like, man, video is just not my thing. Like I can do it, but it's so tedious staring at this computer and just these little micro adjustments. I can edit a video, but editing a video that people want to consume is the real gift. And I didn't know if I had that passion for it. So I'll still record stuff. But I'm like, you know what? I know how to podcast. I can still parlay that into talking about deer hunting for an entire year. Let's just do that.